Alright, we're back at it again. Episode 4 of Lovecraft Country, called The History of Violence. Hmm. And you'll know why I'm when we get towards the end of the episode review or breakdown. So Montrose is having a breakdown from his past adventures. He's reading the precepts and bylaws of the Book of the Dawn. In one of its intros, it's Adam named, Eve fucked, God brought forth monsters, monsters devoured, God smites Eve. He then sets it on fire. George's voice is heard in the background. Montrose says it smells like Tulsa, once again reminding us this is in the same universe as the Watchmen, Tulsa, Oklahoma setting. Okay. Christina goes to see Letty. There's a protection spell preventing her from entering. She asks, who helped you invoke Hiram? Hiram from all the brothers in the lodges, Hiram Abiff, being raised to a perpendicular level, okay, or being raised from a perpendicular level. Letty deduced the money to buy the house came from her. Christina tells Letty Tick isn't that special, only because Titus spelled on his ancestors. Witchcraft, whatever. She accuses Tick of trying to shoot her. She wants Hiram. She wants the Ori, Hiram's Ori. The Ori is the same Ori that Hippolyta was looking at in The Office, episode 3. It's the Golden Planetarium. Okay. Hippolyta is debating the existence of two suns with her father. She's also trying to figure out how to repair the Ori, because it's mechanical and it's supposed to keep the accurate timing of the universe, of all the planets, and it's not working. Letty then confronts Tick about trying to shoot Christina. Tick tells her she can't be killed. Tick thinks Christina used Tick as a Trojan horse to kill Sam. Okay. Letty thinks Tick planned on leaving her. Tick tells Letty about the two sets of spell books. Tick thinks he can decipher the missing pages and cast spells of their own for protection. Tick then tells Letty to go home. Following that, Tick goes to the bar to see Montrose, the same bar from the very first episode where you saw Sam, the owner, in the back alley with another man. This is going to come into play in a minute. Montrose then slips and tells Tick there's 34 lodges. Montrose then tells him to leave it alone. He tells Letty there's a clue in Boston. So Christina is escorted by two officers to a bar to meet Captain Lancaster. He's the one that was overseeing the investigation of the missing 8 bodies in Letty's house. He was a follower of Hiram. Okay, Hiram Epstein, the angel of death, the doctor guy that operated on people. She tells him she's looking for the Ori. She mentions Lancaster isn't officially a member, even though he was a follower of Hiram. Hiram was never officially a member. He left and broke off to do his own thing, and then Lancaster followed him. Okay. He's supposed to prevent blacks from moving into the house. Hippolyta and Dee are going to Boston with Tick, Letty, and Montrose. Hippolyta invites Seymour, or aka Tree, the big tall guy that had the hots for Letty. Ruby goes to apply to Marshall Field. She meets another sister that's working there. They arrive in Boston, and then they start looking at the Titus Braithwaite wing of the museum. Hippolyta and Dee bond over astronomy. Hippolyta tells Dee that she was the one that named Hera's chariot comet, but didn't get the credit because of the color of her skin. The Titus display describes Titus as an explorer, code word for colonizer, teaching the savage tribes the civilized ways of man. Now, we all know that story is in reverse, because it was actually the melanated people that taught the real savages ways of civilization. Okay. Tick sees a Titus map of his lost voyages. Tree then confronts Tick about Letty and insinuates Montrose and Savage are lovers. The security guard that lets them into the museum is a friend from the bar, from Sammy's bar. So there's this underground network of homosexual black men, and that apparently Montrose is part of it, unfortunately. Okay. Christina's being followed by 2 cops. They're beaten up by William. The trio are looking for the entrance to the vault. Montrose notices the moonlight. The beam bounces off the statue, off the map, then back to the statue. There's a switch they flip. It unlocks the vault, and underneath the Titus statue, Tick sees 3 tunnels. It says, "Beware, O ye who enters the path, the tide shall rise." They need the map of Titus's voyages as a guide. Titus raided Guyana. It's mentioned that Titus raided Guyana for its wealth. Montrose knew that. Montrose pretty much memories. He has a what's it called? A picture memory, or whatever the case may be. He can see something and just remember it off the top. So he memorized the entire Precepts Dawn book. Okay. They picked the North Tunnel. Ruby is back performing in front of a lackluster crowd. William buys her a drink. He offers to change her life. She reveals she had offers before to be a kept woman. The trio, back to the museum, they come to a plank they must cross over to the other side. Montrose tells a story of a special knot that they learned to keep the horses from breaking free. It was learned from Montrose's dad and his grandfather, and it was passed down as a special knot that they used to keep the horses from breaking free. Okay, they encounter a flying blade. As the plank begins to disappear, they make it to the other side of the door, but there's a combination. Montrose recites the passage about Adam named Eve fucked from the very beginning of this episode. They have an hour to find the pages and get out before the tide rises. Back at the bar, a drunken Ruby spills her guts to William. They have sex. She cuts her hand. He drinks her blood. He has these markings on his chest, body modifications, so he's been branded. I couldn't get a clear shot of the marks on his chest. I hope next episode I'll be able to see, and I could break down the meaning of the symbols on his chest. Tick questions how Montrose knows so much about the Sons. He said George told him to save the family. He read the book, then he burned it. They find a dead body, one of Letty's neighbors. Now, how is Letty recognizing one of her dead neighbors in the underground cavern in a museum in Boston? And they encounter the elevator from Letty's house. So now there's an underground portal somewhere. So we're talking time travel to a certain extent. Okay, they then avoid the elevator and travel further. They come to another combination door. Tick uses his ring to open the door. It requires his blood. So as he sticks his hand in it with the ring on it, it cuts him, and the blood fills up at the top, and then a ladder then drops down. They come across a banquet table surrounded by dead natives. They take the pages, the Titus pages, from one of the bodies, and it then it reanimates and comes back to life. Now here we go. Here's the agenda. She, in her native language, says she's looking for Titus. Tick understands her language. It's a full body shot. It is a transformer. Its name is Yahima. She is an Arawak. She's a native of the land. Okay. Now remember, his last voyage was, I believe they mentioned, it wasn't Guyana, but one of his last, it shows in the map where his last voyage went to. So he came across some natives, some indigenous people. She's the last of her kind. So then she describes herself as a woman, man, 2 spirits. She says Titus came looking for someone to transcribe his book. She refused to help him. He then killed her people and then imprisoned her as punishment for not helping transcribe the book for him. The room fills with water. They swim to the elevator. As the elevator rises, Tick kisses Letty. Yahima then lets out a scream. Tick punches her and knocks her out. Hippolyta and Dee are on the road back from Boston back to Chicago by themselves. Somehow, Tick, Montrose, Letty, and Yahima made it back to Letty's home in Chicago. So they went through a portal of some sorts, okay? Hippo then sees George's atlas that Dee's holding. She then decides to get answers. So she's on her way to Artem with the Shoggoths, the vampires, and all that crazy stuff in Artem. Sundown Town as well. Now the trio then wind up back at Letty's house. Titus then turned She says Titus turned Yahima into a siren. Montrose tells Tick he grew up to be a good man. His mother would be proud. And then as Tick and Lady go off, Montrose apologizes to Yahima before slitting its throat. Because the plan was Tick wanted Yahima to transcribe the pages in her language, and he could decipher it for himself, and they could read it and decipher the pages of the books that way. Yikes. So the agenda is in this. You can't get away from it, unfortunately. You can do all the juxtaposition you want about natives and their treatment and racism and the colonization, but to throw in the transformer was just, it's overkill, man. I'm like, y'all doing too much. But hey, it is what it is. Y'all have a good one. Peace.